got 2 weeks left. This is the end of week 7. So only 2 weeks left. We are definitely at the crunch time where there are only a handful of bills that are not on the floor that have any real chance of passing. The last couple of weeks tend to be dominated by clearing out the last of the bills off the floor and focusing on the budget. So I've got this week's report from Laura. Thanks again for putting this out. You all have access to this. It's in your emails or online. But I've done some annotations here in red, and then we can flip back and forth to the bills. But the floating vessel, this is ordered by last action, not by importance. So all the bills that had actions this week are all at the top. So floating vessel platforms is on the floor, House and Senate. Looks like it's going to pass. Environmental protection by Broder. So this is the one we talked about in detail a couple of weeks ago. It has all the new septic tank limitations in it. There was some chatter this week about a big amendment by Broder, but it did not get passed. So 1632 is still in the form that it was the committee substitute back in the end of March. This amendment that was filed this week was withdrawn. So we're still on committee 1 version. So this was the version we talked about 2 weeks ago. Nothing's changed on that. It is through the House, and it is on the last stop. It's in fiscal policy on the Senate. So there's still an opportunity. So not ruling out the chance that for whatever reason this was withdrawn. Maybe there were some things in it that not everybody liked, and Broder's working on it, and maybe Broder files it at the last stop. So there's still a chance that there's a change, but it's on the floor of the House in the current version, which means there would have to be some conforming, or the House would have to lay it down and take up the Senate version. But anyway, that's all looking like it's going to pass. There is one more stop, but it's on the calendar already, which is very strong indication that that thing's going to go through and make it to the floor in time. Any questions on that one? I'm going to stop on that one, since that's probably the biggest environmental bill that's on our radar this year. Okay. Some of the things that I looked at in this amendment, I know it hasn't passed, but again, there's still a stop. Broder was talking about wanting to tighten up some requirements and loosen some requirements in the septic tank restriction world. So if that's a thing that you care about, that amendment may be worth reading. We might see a different version of that amendment next week. So anyway, don't spend a ton of time on it, but I think that septic tank policy is an area that they're still working on. All right, seagrass restoration technology development. This is a kind of an R&D program, creates a new budget and an office for seagrass restoration at DEP. It is on the floor in both chambers. Looks like it's going to pass. Water and wastewater facility operators did pass both chambers this week. So it'll be presented to the governor at some point. Remember, this adds reciprocity from other states. It's an initiative to try to get more water and wastewater facility operators in the state. There's the companion bill. I'm going to skip over ag lands and district surplus lands. This is really of more interest, and local government comprehensive plans. These are more of interest to the Land Development Committee, so they're on here as FYI. The use of phosphogypsum study. So this does not authorize its use. It authorizes the study of its use. It's on the floor in both chambers. So it looks like it's going to pass. This is the companion to floating vessel. So the next one is the flooding and sea level rise vulnerability studies. It is on the last stop in the Senate and on the floor of the House. So this looks like it can go. It is not yet calendared for a committee for fiscal policy next week. So if it isn't calendared soon, there's really only one more meeting. It's that meeting on the 25th. If this bill does not get calendared for that meeting of fiscal policy on the 25th, and this thing will die. Administrative procedures. This isn't directly environmental, but it does have an interesting couple of provisions in here about how all agencies have to promulgate their CERCs, their Statement of Estimated Regulatory Costs for rulemaking. And I flagged it because the process that we all recently observed with the CERC for the estimated cost of the stormwater rule, that was a black box. You know, the department did that on its own. Nobody had any public input to it. When we did lower cost regulatory alternatives, there was no procedure for a lower cost regulatory alternative to do an alternative CERC or have the department, you know, make changes to its CERC based on the lower cost. So this would significantly increase the standards for doing a CERC, essentially making the development of the CERC follow the same process for rule development. So it has to be a public process, open to public comment, et cetera, for the CERCs. And that looks like it's going to pass. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's on the last stop in the Senate, which is also fiscal policy, also not calendared yet. So could pass. And then everything else down here is a repeat. No, here's a couple more. All right, yeah, the ratification bill for DEP is on the floor in both chambers without stormwater, of course. It's got the wastewater and the septic tank rule in there, but nothing else on the last or at the floor, on the floor. Biosolids is on the last stop in the Senate.
What does the septic tank rule on that have?
I'm sorry.
What does the septic tank rule?
It implements the septic tank technical advisory committee recommendations from last year. It has mostly to do with innovative technology approval process, and there's something in there about studying setbacks from water, from surface waters and wetlands. So the rule that it's implementing is 62.6. And so you'd want to go to the department web page and look at the rulemaking section, go to 62.6, and the most recent version will be the one that's adopted, and its effective date is pending ratification. And I think everything else past this, there was no activity. And so when you get down to the bottom here, these bills are bills that are not going to pass this year. They're not far enough along, or they haven't made it through their committee stops. Any more questions? So Harold, this is the 626. If you just type in what I typed in, 626 rule development, this is the rule here. Oh, that's right. It also added the private provider inspections provision that was implemented last year.
Hey, Jeff, for those of us that might have come in late, can you just give the short version of the stormwater rule update?
Sure thing. Does not look like it's going to be ratified this year. The rule is adopted rule, but it is not effective.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jeff, and it also means that volume 2 by each of the districts is not effective.
Correct. They can be adopted, but they will not be effective until the main rule is effective. And so I have noticed, and somebody emailed me, may have been you, Bob, somebody emailed me some rule adoption being done in South Florida and SwiftMud for their volume 2s, and that's going to continue. They were instructed to have their volume 2 changes, conforming changes to the new stormwater rules adopted by July 1, which is when the main rule was intended to be effective. So they're going to continue to do that, but those changes to volume 2 will not be effective because the DEP rule that implements those changes will not be effective. I saw a hand raised.
Yes, we have a question in the, let's see. Jim Myers has a question.
Hey, Laura and Jeff, good morning.
Good morning.
Good
Jeff,
morning.
great job as always. I've had 2 pre-application meetings with both SwiftMud and the South Florida Water Management District in the last 2 weeks. And both of those indicated that they're moving forward aggressively with the new stormwater rule as it's, I guess, sort of written today, because they've made some adjustments recently. And I heard it from both locations, they're all under the impression that there's going to be a special session in June where they're planning on, or they're hearing from DEP that it'll get adopted then. Any news on that?
I have not. I've heard that rumor, but I've not heard anything from DEP about it or from anybody else.
Great.
It could be wishful thinking.
Yeah.
Which water management districts was that, Jim?
South Florida and SwiftMud.
I'm gonna have to get a couple of beers into John Coates and shine the spotlight on him and see what he says about that. To get a special session, it would require the governor and House and Senate leadership, to agree on that it's necessary.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right. I'm happy to return extra time in your day on a Friday. I think so. Next week's call, Laura doesn't even know this yet, but I'm actually going to be out of town on an anniversary trip with my wife. It's our 20-year anniversary next week. So what I'm going to give you a preview of next week. You'll get another report. There's Shaw. Thanks for the claps. You will get the same report from Laura. And at the top of that, you're going to see some of these handful of bills that were on their last stops. They'll either have made it or not. And when we do the call the week after that, the last week of session, I can give you the final report on what passed and what failed to pass. But I would say that the one to watch is the environmental bill by Broder. It is calendared. He did withdraw an amendment. He's likely to file another one. If that's something that you're interested in, anything in there, then keep an eye on that. And unless there's anything else.
Shaw, did you have a question?
No, it's congratulations and
thank you.
Job well done.
Thank you.
On both things.
So then
All right.
I'll send out a cancellation for next Friday's meeting. Keep an eye out for that in your Outlook. Of course, the following weeks will still be on the calendar, but next week is canceled.
Okay.
We want to have a guest presenter. I think Laura or Shaw could do it.
No, we'll get Mark to do it.
There you go.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a good
everyone.
weekend,
Have
everyone.
a great weekend.
You too.
Likewise. Thank you.